وصحبه أجمعين. اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما علمتنا وزدنا علما. اللهم لا سهل إلا ما جعلته سهلا وأنت تجعل الحزن إذا شئت سهلا. اللهم أصلح لنا ديننا الذي هو عصمة أمننا، وأصلح لنا دنيانا التي فيها معاشنا، وأصلح لنا آخرتنا التي إليها معادنا، واجعل الحياة زيادة لنا في كل خير، واجعل الموت راحة لنا من كل شر. So where did we get in which ayah did we stop at? وَإِذَا لَقُوا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا قَالُوا آمَنَّا. Is that what it is? That was, we didn't do that ayah, right?
We didn't.
Okay. طيب يا شباب. وإذا لقوا الذين آمنوا وإذا خلوا إلى شياطينهم.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. وإذا لقوا الذين آمنوا قالوا آمنا وإذا خلوا إلى شياطينهم قالوا إنا معكم إنما نحن مستهزئون. الله يستهزئ بهم ويمدهم في طغيانهم يعمهون. أولئك الذين اشتروا الضلالة بالهدى فما ربحت تجارتهم وما كانوا مهتدين. مثلهم كمثل الذي استوقد نارا فلما أضاءت ما حوله ذهب الله بنورهم وتركهم في ظلمات لا يبصرون. صم بكم عمي فهم لا يرجعون. أو كصيب من السماء فيه ظلمات ورعد وبرق يجعلون أصابعهم في آذانهم من الصواعق حذر الموت والله محيط بالكافرين. يكاد البرق يخطف أبصارهم كلما أضاء لهم مشوا فيه وإذا أظلم عليهم قاموا ولو شاء الله لذهب بسمعهم وأبصارهم إن الله على كل شيء قدير.
So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he talked about the believers and muttaqeen. He talked about the kuffar, right? We talked about what kufr is, what the kuffar are. So now Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is talking about the munafiqeen, the hypocrites, right? And we talked about some of their description, right? What's the ayah before? وَإِذَا لَقُوا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا قَالُوا آمَنَّا قَالُوا أَنُؤْمِنُ كَمَا آمَنَ السُّفَهَاءُ, right? So they were mocking the Sahaba, right? Like, you know, they're trying to say that, like, why would we be believers like those guys? Companions, right? And now Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is also describing another scenario where they meet the believers. They meet the believers and they say, oh yeah, we're believers, we're with you, right? Basically, they're two-faced. But when they go to their friends, right, to their shayateen, to their people that they are with, their shayateen, إِذَا خَلَوْا إِلَى شَيَاطِينِهِمْ قَالُوا إِنَّا مَعَكُمْ إِنَّمَا نَحْنُ مُسْتَهْزِئُونَ. We're with you, we're just making fun of them. We're playing games with them, right? Now, again, these are the munafiqeen that have hypocrisy in their iman, in their belief. Okay, and we talked about the hypocrisy in actions. Okay, and obviously these are the worst. These are the worst of the hypocrites. So when they go to their shayateen, they say that we're with you. إنما نحن مستهزئون. We're just mocking them. Right? We're mocking them. الله يستهزئ بهم ويمدهم في طغيانهم يعمهون. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one who is truly mocking them, and He is pushing them further in their طغيان, in their, and طغى is when someone does طغيان is when they are at the far end of their sin. They are at the limit of their sin, the far limit of their sin. This is طغيان, right? So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is directing them more towards that طغيان, towards that sin. So a question here. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that He is mocking them. Allahu yastahzi'u bihim. So is this an attribute of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala?
To mock?
Right. Is it an attribute of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala?
It's like that situation, Allah khairul makirin, they ask. Is that the same
Right.
situation?
Right. So another ayah where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala He says وَمَكَرُوا وَمَكَرَ اللَّهُ. Right? They did makr and then Allah did makr, and Allah is the best of the people who do, or the best of the ones who do makr. Allahu khairul makirin. So what is makr though?
Planning, scheming, plotting, scheming.
Right, and the thing about makr, it has a connotation that it is done in well, it is negatively, but it's done in like it's in private or hiding. Right, you don't like when an army moves to go to a war, you don't say they're doing makr. Right, makr is like when someone smaller is doing something to hide. Right, it doesn't mean it's someone smaller, but the indication that makr has is that it is hiding something bad towards someone. Right, so how is it that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did makr?
He knows of their plan and plots that He will not let them be.
And they have no idea what He's doing.
Yeah, secret.
They think they're smart and they're
Right, and they don't know that Allah has something for them.
Because He know what their plan is and plots is.
Right, exactly. And this is a perfect example of what Israel is doing. Right? They think everything that they're doing, they're trying to fool everybody in their plots and planning. They're hiding all these plans to, but Allah's the one who's in charge. Allah has something for them, for everything that they're doing. But now, okay, so the question, even for that situation, does that mean that it is an attribute of Allah to do makr? So, an attribute of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is something that is a character of Him all the time. It is a everlasting character. Right? These two characters are a result of what someone is doing. Right? Or a punishment for what someone is doing. Does that make sense? Allah, like you can say, for example, Allah is shadidul iqab. Right? But even in Shadidul Iqab, is that an attribute of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Right? Even in that case, that is a reaction, excuse me, that is a punishment for what someone is doing. Right? So, here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Allahu yastahzi'u bihim, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is mocking them. Right? How is it exactly that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is mocking them? Some say that it is by وَيَمُدُّهُمْ فِي طُغْيَانِهِمْ يَعْمَهُونَ, that He is pushing them more into their sins, into their deep sins. Right? And some say that it could be something else. It could be this and something else. But nonetheless, we know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is mocking them. Right? أُولَٰئِكَ الَّذِينَ اشْتَرَوُا الضَّلَالَةَ بِالْهُدَى. So here we're talking about this trading again, this buying and selling. So these people, ishtara, and we talked about when you hear the word ishtara, it requires 4 components: the buyer, the seller, the product, and the price. Right? Okay, so who's the buyer here? أولئك الذين اشتروا الضلالة بالهدى فما ربحت تجارتهم وما كانوا مهتدين. Okay, so who's the buyer here? The hypocrites are the buyers, right? So who's the seller? Well, let's talk about the seller first. Who would the seller be?
Allah.
Huda is from Allah.
So I mean, that's a good question. I don't know the answer to that. I don't know who the seller would be here. Is it? Well, the reason that I'm saying I don't know the answer to that is it befitting to say that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the seller? That's why I'm saying I don't know the answer to that. I don't know if it's befitting to say that. But nonetheless.
Maybe the giver, can we make it could be a giver instead of seller, like who give guidance to them?
No. So Allah does sell in certain situations. And it is befitting to say that He is the seller. But the question is it befitting to say that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the seller in this situation? I don't know. Because what they're buying is something bad. Right? So anyways, so these munafiqeen are buying, and what are they buying? Dalala. Right? So they're what do you call it? The product that they are buying is misguidance. They are getting misguidance. And what is the price that they're selling it for? Guidance. They don't want the guidance. So we understand from this is that anytime guidance comes to you and you don't take it, you are buying misguidance. Anytime guidance comes to you, because think about it for a second. If guidance comes to you, it's from where? Allah. And if you're rejecting it, you are rejecting that price, that favor upon you. So anytime guidance comes to you, you are buying misguidance. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says, وَيْلٌ لِكُلِّ أَفَّاكٍ أَثِيمٍ. Woe to every extreme liar and extreme sinner. يَسْمَعُ آيَاتِ اللَّهِ تُتْلَى عَلَيْهِ. He hears the verses of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala being recited upon him. ثم يصر مستكبرا, and then he acts as if he is arrogant, as if he never heard it. كأن لم يسمعها فبشره بعذاب أليم. So tell him about an extremely painful punishment. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect us. So this is a scary thing about the hypocrites, that they took guidance and they paid for misguidance with it. They gave up guidance to get misguidance. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect us. And the sad thing about this is that anyone can fall into this type of thing, because guidance comes in many forms. It could be hearing the Quran and not paying attention to it. It could be hearing a hadith and saying, no big deal. It doesn't apply to me. So on and so forth. Could be, there are many things that we might think, oh yeah, it's not a big deal. I don't need that. Right? But nonetheless, it's because you're rejecting guidance, it could be that you are getting misguidance. And it's a very dangerous thing. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect us from it. فَمَا رَبِحَتْ تِجَارَتُهُمْ. Their trade has no ribh. Ribh is profit. Okay? Their trade has no profit. وَمَا كَانُوا مُهْتَدِينَ. So meaning that their trade that they did, they think that they're giving something to get something good. So whenever you trade something, like if I'm going to sell something, like it's stupid if I bought this for $1 to sell it for 50 cents. Like, why would I sell that for 50 cents? It makes more sense for me to make money off of it, or at least break even. Right? But these people, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect us from being from amongst them, they're selling guidance to get misguidance. And therefore there is no profit from their trade. There is no benefit to them in that trade, where they might think they're getting a benefit, but they're losing in that trade. وَمَا كَانُوا مُهْتَدِينَ. And they have no guidance. They are not from the guided. And they are not from the guided. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala didn't give them that guidance. Because guidance is something that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives. Now Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because of His divine wisdom, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because of His utmost mercy upon us, He gives us examples in the Quran. Right? As He says later on, إِنَّ اللَّهَ لَا يَسْتَحِي أَن يَضْرِبَ مَثَلًا مَا بَعُوضَةً فَمَا فَوْقَهَا. Allah is not shy to give an example as small as a fly, or something maybe even more than that, or something as a fly, or something less than that. Okay? But anyways, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because there are people that say, ماذا أراد الله بهذا مثلا? Like, why is Allah giving these examples? This is what the hypocrites might say, or the kuffar might say. Why is Allah giving these examples? Right? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He gives these examples out of His divine wisdom. Right? And it's our job to try to understand these examples, because these examples are the best examples. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says here, مثلهم كمثل الذي استوقد نارا. Right? They are in the like of الذي استوقد نارا. استوقد نارا is someone who lights a fire. Right? So when you light a fire at night. Because, again, when we talk in the context of the Quran was revealed originally to the Prophet ﷺ and the companions. So it's important to understand it from the perspective of the people of that time. Okay? So who lights a fire? Someone at night. Nobody lights a fire during the day. What's the point of lighting a fire in the day? You don't do that, right? Unless you're cooking, right? But still, that fire would be like something small. But istawqada naran, a nar is a fire, right? Is a big fire. So you do that at night. So therefore, we understand there's a nighttime going on, right? فَلَمَّا أَضَاءَتْ مَا حَوْلَهُ. So what happens when the fire gets lit is that everything around it becomes lightened, right? So if you think about it, fire in itself has two components: heat and light. Okay? So when they lit this fire, they're getting both heat and light. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He talks about the light part of it. Because now what happened is the light around them, you see the effects of it. So with light, you can see. فَلَمَّا أَضَاءَتْ مَا حَوْلَهُ ذَهَبَ اللَّهُ بِنُورِهِمْ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala takes away their light. Takes away their light. Now he didn't say He took away their fire, or He didn't say He took away their heat. He said He took away the light. Right? وَتَرَكَهُمْ فِي ظُلُمَاتٍ لَا يُبْصِرُونَ. So because He took away their light, we understand that the purpose of the fire was the light. Okay? So now, I guess we're kind of understanding that they're at night, okay? And we're also understanding they're in a desert. So you're not really lighting the fire for the heat necessarily. It's for the light. So now Allah takes away that light. Okay? ذهب الله بنورهم وتركهم في ظلمات. And He left them in not just darkness, in many darknesses. ظلمات لا يبصرون, where they can't see anything. Right? They have no vision. Right? So we understand from this that these people, they're trying to buy something that is beneficial. Okay? These munafiqeen, they're buying something that's beneficial to them, or they think is beneficial. So they light the fire. Because this fire is illuminating and giving guidance. Because in essence, guidance is light. Right? And fire is giving that light guidance. Right? So they think that when they light this fire, they're going to get light. But because they're not seeking that light from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the correct way that they're supposed to do it, Allah takes that light away, and then they're just in the darkness. And they see nothing. Right? They think they're going to something good. They think they're trying to do something good, but yet they find themselves in darkness. Why? Because they're not seeking it from the right source. Right? في ظلمات لا يبصرون صم بكم عمي فهم لا يرجعون. Now I can never remember which one is which, I'm going to be honest with you. But I believe summun is not, they can't speak.
Deaf.
Deaf.
Hearing?
Dumb.
Yes.
They cannot
They
speak.
can't hear.
Right?
I think it's speaking.
Bukman, yeah, speaking.
Wait, no, someone.
Someone.
Summun.
Is hearing? Okay.
The upcoming.
Yeah. Okay. So sum is hearing, right? So they can't hear anything. Bukmum they can't speak, and they can't see. فهم لا يبصرون. صم بكم عمي فهم لا يرجعون. So they can't return. Right? They're lost. They're completely lost. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala took away their senses. Right? And these senses that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala took away are senses of receiving light. Senses to receive that guidance. Okay? So they can't get it. So therefore they're completely lost. Right? May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect us from that.
The light here is Quran.
So the light is the light of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the Quran is one of those lights, is guidance.
Rasul can be one of them.
So huh?
Rasul can be one of
Another light.
Yeah,
one
so
to show, just like a candle.
so the thing here is that we're talking about the hypocrites. Okay? And the hypocrites are trying to get light. But because they're going through the wrong source, the wrong path to get the light, right? Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala takes that light away. So therefore they can't see anything. They're blind.
So the light here is Quran.
Okay, wait a second. So let's look at Allah's talking about the hypocrites. And the fire that they're lighting is meaningless because Allah took it away. Does that make sense? Rather, the light that you need to go to, not that fire, not to light this fire, but the light that you need to go to is Allah's light. He's not mentioning Allah's light here. He's mentioning what the munafiqeen are lighting, which is that fire, right? And that fire is the wrong fire to light. Does that make sense?
Little bit, but they مثلهم كمثل الذي, like he's referring to someone, right? The candle light.
The hypocrites are like these people.
Who lights a candle or someone he's mentioning,
Yeah, he's not mentioning a specific type of a specific person, but he's mentioning a scenario. Does that make sense? So this scenario where people are lighting a fire and they're trying to get light from this fire, Allah takes away all the light, so they can't see anything. Does that make sense?
Yes.
She doesn't get it.
Okay, so well, the issue is the first question that we need to ask here is, who is Allah talking about?
Hypocrites, munafiq.
The hypocrites, right? Okay, and the hypocrites are obviously doing something wrong, right? So, what they're doing, what's wrong, is that they're lighting this fire thinking that this fire is going to help them see.
Yeah. But there's Allah who gives the ability to see.
It's Allah who gives the ability to see.
Yeah, it's not the fire.
It's not that fire. But they're trying to get it from the fire.
Different source.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala takes away the light and they can't see anything. Right? And they are in many darknesses. They are in dhulumat. They are in an extreme darkness, right? And they can't see. لا يبصرون. صم بكم عمي فهم لا يرجعون. They are lost. They are completely lost. Right? أو كصيب من السماء. Right? Now Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is describing another scenario, which is كصيب من السماء. صيب is an extreme rain, like very hard rain. So now let's imagine this scenario. Again, we're in the desert, and it's raining extremely hard. Right? When it's raining extremely hard, you can't see too far. Right? You can't see far ahead of you. And in some cases it could be suffocating because there's so much rain coming down. Right? فيه ظلمات ورعد وبرق. Okay, so in this rain, it has ظلمات, which is extreme darkness. Right? ورعد. Ra'd is the thunder, right? And then the barq is the lightning. Okay, so it has thunder and lightning. So I mean, be honest, guys. How do you feel? You don't have to hide your feelings when there's thunder and lightning. Everybody feels fear. Right? So now you can't see, and you're hearing, and I can never remember which one is which. Lightning is the thing you see, right? Okay, so you're hearing thunder, and you're seeing a scary light. The light that you see is scary. It's not, oh, light, I can see, I'm happy. No, it's a scary light. Okay, so now you're in this situation, and obviously you're lost. Right? يَجْعَلُونَ, because the situation is so severe, the thunder is so loud, يَجْعَلُونَ أَصَابِعَهُمْ فِي آذَانِهِمْ. Like, okay, this is a usbu'. Right? So this is your finger. And then there's this thing that's called anamil. And it's also mentioned in the Quran, anamil. Right? So when you want to cover your ears, what do? You put your anamil in your ear. But Allah says they put their fingers in their ear. Because they're so scared. And they're so like nervous and like going crazy that they put their whole fingers in their ears. من الصواعق حذر الموت, because they are afraid of dying. Right? They're so like afraid of dying in this situation that they're putting their fingers inside their ears. Right? Wallahu muhitun bil kafirin. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is muhit, and ihata is to, when something is muhit for something. So like this water here, you can say this bottle is muhit bil ma. Encompassing, yes. Right? So it's encompassing the water. Right? So the water can't get away. The water, it can't do anything but within the limits that this bottle is giving it. Right? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is encompassing of the kuffar. Like the kafir, again, same situation that we see with Israel. Right? They honestly think that they're doing something and they're getting away with murder. You honestly believe it. But they're not realizing that Allah is the one who's in control of the whole situation. It's Allah who's in complete control and not them. They think they're getting away with all of this, and they know what they're doing. And they think they're getting away with it. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one who is in complete control. Right? So these hypocrites, they're in this scary situation, and Allah is in control of them. Allah is in charge of everything that's going on with them. So they think, or they may have thought, that they can get away from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but it is Him who's in control. يَكَادُ الْبَرْقُ يَخْطَفُ أَبْصَارَهُم. The lightning is on the verge of taking away, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, أَبْصَارَهُم, their vision. The lightning is on the verge of taking away your vision. And how does that happen? I mean, we all know, like, you know, if a light turns on really quickly, you're like, right? So this lightning basically is not a light that is helpful for them to see. It's harmful for their vision. It's not helpful for their vision, it's harmful. Right? So they think they can figure this out. Right? So they're like, okay, كُلَّمَا أَضَاءَ لَهُمْ مَشَوْا فِيهِ. So they're like, they saw a light, okay, let's go that way. وَإِذَا أَظْلَمَ عَلَيْهِمْ قَامُوا. So now that lightning is gone, they're like, okay, what do we do? Right? And imagine that type of life where you're constantly, oh, go this way, stop, go this way, stop. Whereas opposed to, you have a clear light path in front of you, and you just walk on that path. Because a believer has the light and guidance from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So his path is clear, and he's comfortable. He's just walking on that path. Whereas the hypocrite, he's like, there's a light, go this way. There's a light, go that way. Right? And then as soon as the light goes away, they're like, what do I do? Right? So every day is up and down, up and down, up and down, up and down with their emotions. Right? But a believer is steady. Right? So this is also an understanding that we have to come to. That if we live this life of up and down, up and down, up and down, there's something wrong. There's something that we have to change. Because the believer is on even keel. When I say up and down, I'm talking about the guidance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I'm talking about understanding your path. Right? I'm not talking about up and down like, oh, you had a difficult day today, and the next day was easy. That's not what I mean by up and down, because difficulty, those things, they come. But rather, the content of knowing that you're going on the right path, and understanding that you are going on the right path, and you are on that light that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us, the Quran, the Sunnah, so on and so forth. Right? وَلَوْ شَاءَ اللَّهُ لَذَهَبَ بِسَمْعِهِمْ وَأَبْصَارِهِمْ. That if Allah wants, He can take their sight and their hearing completely away. إِنَّ اللَّهَ عَلَى كُلِّ شَيْءٍ قَدِيرٌ. Allah has complete ability. Okay? So this second example is the example of, again, these hypocrites. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect us from being from amongst them. And these hypocrites, they are in a constant worry and a constant I'm not sure exactly the word to use there, but basically,
I mean, they're preoccupied.
well,
Okay, that's all that they can think of.
it's nervousness. They're constantly like this.
yeah.
This is how they constantly are. Okay, so a question may come up, or someone may ask: does that mean that anybody that has this issue, this nervousness, like, oh, is this gonna work like this? Is that gonna? Does that mean that they are deficient in iman?
Maybe.
Uncertainty is okay, like not to be sure about something.
No,
Yes.
but being anxious is different though. It's a deficiency in iman.
Yeah, being anxious is a deficiency in iman. Because think about it. Why would
She said no.
why would someone be anxious? So wait a second. Look, let's not talk about a clinical issue.
No, yeah.
We don't want to talk about necessarily if somebody has a physical issue,
Yeah, we're
disability,
talking
or
about-
something like
We're
that.
talking about issues of the heart.
Yes, we're talking about issues of the heart.
Mhm.
So if someone is anxious or has this problem because of an issue of the heart, this is what we're talking about. Okay? A spiritual issue. Yes. Now the question is, why does this happen? Why will someone be anxious?
Lack of tawakkul.
That's the level of your iman.
Yes, exactly. It is. Say it again.
Lack of tawakkul.
Lack of tawakkul. Exactly. Now let's talk about what is tawakkul. Tawakkul, again, is two parts. Number one, it's understanding that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one who is in control. We know Allah is more merciful on us than a mother who is breastfeeding her child. Right? So a child that's getting breastfed, they're in the best place. There is no other place that they could be that is better than that. True or no? There's 0.000000000% chance that something bad is going to happen to that child, because their mother is there and protecting them and making sure nothing is going to happen. Does that make sense? Allah is more merciful on us and more diligent than a mother, and more understanding than a mother. That's everything that's going on. Right? So how can something bad happen? When a baby is in that position of breastfeeding, that baby is in the most comfortable position ever. There is no more position that's more comfortable than that. Doesn't exist for the baby. Yes or no? Okay, so us as human beings, with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we are always in a better position than that baby's in. Always. So if we're always in a better position than that, why are we worried? What are we worried about? So therefore the iman. Okay, now that we understand the problem, okay, but let me also mention tawakkul, the other aspect to it is actually doing something. Because the second aspect to depending on Allah is that you have to do something. Using the means. I'm thirsty. Right? Do I just say, oh Allah, give me water? And just look at it? No, I gotta pick it up. Bismillah. I drink it. Now that I drank it, my body is doing things to right? There's a sheikh. They told the sheikh, they said, "Yeah, sheikh, I depend on Allah, so I don't go to work." He said, "Really?" He said, "Okay, I'll bring you some food." He brings him some food. He said, "Depend on Allah, don't eat it. Don't put your hand in it. Let it jump into your mouth." He says, "And then now, when it jumps into your mouth, don't chew it." Why would you chew it? And then now that it chewed itself, don't swallow. Right? It doesn't make sense. Allah gives us things with the means. So our job is to do. Does that make sense? So tawakkul has two parts. Is understanding that Allah is taking care of us. Allah is the one who's in complete control. And then doing something to explore the means that Allah has given us. To get the things that Allah has given us. Right? Like even when you get an orange, you gotta peel it. It doesn't just come ready to go, right? Anyways, so now that we understand the symptom, how do we solve that problem? How do we solve the problem of tawakkul? Well, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He told us, وَاسْتَعِينُوا بِالصَّبْرِ وَالصَّلَاةِ. Like, how do we get through this world? We get through this world with sabr and salah. Sabr, you know, this is something, subhanallah. I mean, we can talk about sabr for a long time and it won't do it justice. But one thing that kind of drives me crazy about people and sabr is two things. One is when someone says, "I had enough sabr and I can't do it anymore." Okay? The reason why that drives me crazy is because by definition, you never had sabr. Okay? Because sabr is for the duration of the difficulty. Right? So if you can't handle the difficulty for the duration of it, then you never had it. Does that make sense? So that's the first problem that I have with people's attitude towards sabr. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect us from that. The second attitude that I have with people in regards to sabr is the attitude that it's too much for me to have sabr. It's too much for me to have sabr. Which it doesn't make sense. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says, "La yukallifu Allahu nafsan illa wus'aha." Allah only gives, or Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala puts you in a situation that you can handle. So by definition, whatever it is that you're going through, you have sabr for it. The question is, are you ready for the challenge? So Allah is giving you a challenge, right? And as a matter of fact, the Prophet ﷺ said that if Allah wants good for you, then He'll give you a calamity. He'll give you a difficulty. So that difficulty is a sign that Allah is giving you something good. Right? So sabr, in essence, is something that you're supposed to do. And when you don't have sabr, you are sinning. Does that make sense? And a lot of people miss this aspect as well. Then when you don't have sabr, you are sinning. It's haram to not have sabr. You are obligated to have sabr. And what is sabr? Sabr is that the calamity, that you don't see the results of the calamity on you. You don't see the results of the calamity on you. Okay? Now, and again, I understand this is easier said than done. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless us to be from the sabirin. And the reason it's easier said than done is because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, إِنَّمَا يُوَفَّى الصَّابِرُونَ أَجْرَهُم بِغَيْرِ حِسَابٍ. The people who have sabr, their reward is limitless. I mean, let's think about what does limitless mean? Right? Limitless, for me and you, like limitless has a limit. Right? For us, limitless has a limit. We're talking maybe billions, right? Somebody, if you have a good imagination, maybe even trillions, right? But, you get to a point where you're like, okay, that's enough, right? But we're talking about Allah, who is the creator of the heavens and earth. We're talking about Allah, who is bigger than anything that we could possibly ever imagine. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's limitless, we can't comprehend that. So this reward is for the sabr. So obviously sabr is not easy. Nobody's claiming that it's an easy thing. But what I'm trying to do is explain what it is. It is a hard thing. I understand that. But it is something that has to be done. It is an obligation. Sabr is not an option. Sabr is not an option. Sabr is an obligation. You can't say, I can't have sabr anymore. That's like saying, I don't want to pray anymore. No, you have to have sabr. You have to. It's an obligation on every Muslim to have sabr for their calamities that Allah has given you. Right? Whatever it is, the calamity that you have to have sabr. When the lady, she lost her son, is there anything worse than losing your son? As far as we know, that's the worst thing you could possibly ever have. Right? She lost her son. If there's any good reason to wail and go crazy, is when you lose your son. It's the best time to do it. Right? So that's what she was doing. So the common mind would say, I understand what she's going through. Let the lady be. Right? Prophet ﷺ saw her and he said, Ittaqillaha wasbiri. Prophet ﷺ told her, have taqwa of Allah and have sabr. Right? Again, the Prophet ﷺ could have easily just said, oh yeah, I understand what she's going through. Let her be. No, he told her to stop, to have sabr. Does that make sense? And she said, like, ilayka anni, like, you don't know what I'm going through. You don't know what's going on with me. You have no idea. She didn't know who he was. So after he leaves, they told her that was the Prophet ﷺ. So she goes to the Prophet ﷺ and apologizes. The Prophet ﷺ said, rather sabr is when the calamity first hits. So this is something that we have to train ourselves to be ready for calamities so that we can have sabr. We have to be ready for those. We can't say, oh, I have a good reason. If anybody had a good reason to go crazy, it was that lady. Can anybody think of another reason that's a good reason to go crazy? No. That's the best reason that you can go crazy in, right? And the Prophet ﷺ that you can't do that. So in any other case that is less than that, which all cases are less than that, right? You have to have sabr. Does that make sense? It's a hard pill for myself to swallow, and I'm talking about it. Wallahi, it is. But it is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is requiring of us. This is an obligation on us. Right? So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us to ista'inu. How do you say ista'inu? Like seek help from sabr and salah. My beloved brothers and sisters, as-salah, as-salah. As-salah, as-salah. Salah, and when I say salah, I mean all of them. I'm talking about the faridah and the sunnah. The more salah that you do, the more perfect the salah, your salah is. Both. The more you do, and the more perfect it is, the more you are able to have this stability in your life. This salah and sabr is the formula to success in this life. Success doesn't mean money. Success doesn't mean, I don't know, whatever other type of worldly thing you're thinking about or that you may be interested in, because everybody's different. Success is the opposite of what the hypocrites in this ayah are going through. Is that you have your path and you're comfortable in it. You feel good. These hypocrites, they're like this. They're constantly shaking. They're constantly worried, right? But these people who have sabr and are constantly on their salah, they're good. Does that make sense? They have this stability. They have this calmness, right? Prophet ﷺ, he saw a man who came to Medina, and he said, I noticed two things in you that are good, right? And he said, al-hilm wal-ana. Hilm, which is soft-heartedness, I would call it, and ana, which is like taking your time and being calm when responding, being steady state, right? So you'll find scholars, when you sit with scholars, they're not like this. They're very calm, right? They're trying to be like the Prophet ﷺ. And this is how the Prophet ﷺ was. Does that make sense? So I take that long turn to come back to this issue of the hypocrites. And the hypocrites are in this state of what do we call it again? Nervousness. Right? Because they're lost. But a believer is not in that state. Okay? So that's what I mean by a believer is not nervous. Right? Another aspect of that nervousness, because a believer is worried about that big day, the day of judgment. Because that's the ultimate day of nervousness. So that believer's worried about that. So what is it going to do if I'm like meeting a dignitary? Who cares? Right? What does it do if I'm at a job interview or if I'm... Who cares? Right? So it's important to have that perspective, and it's important to constantly train yourself to be ready for those nervous situations so that it's not really that big of a deal. Doesn't really matter that much. Does that make sense? What actually matters is that day when we meet Allah. Am I ready for that? is the question, right? And Allah knows best.
Question about hypocrites. Is that only the Muslims stating they are Muslim or that kind of thing, so it can apply to Jew or Christians or those people not believe in Islam?
So the
But
thing
they
that
think
is
they guided, but
the thing that's beautiful about this ayah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He's making these descriptions about the hypocrites, right?
right.
And these hypocrites are people who are faking to be Muslim, but they're not,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Muslims, yes.
So they are kuffar.
Right.
So if it applies to the kuffar, right, then that's the worst of this trait. So then there are a lot of people who are under that or above that. There are a lot of people who are above that may have some of these traits, but they're not at that level of a hypocrite. Right? And that applies to all the traits kuffar have. Any trait a kafir has that's bad, a Muslim can have that trait too, or remnants of that trait. May Allah protect us from those. But it's and that's the beautiful thing when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala describes these things. He describes it in such a perfect way that it is a lesson for every person, no matter where you stand on the scale. Whether you stand as far away from these people as the best believer, or you stand on the kufr scale, it's all a warning for everyone on the scale. Right? May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect us from these things. Okay? So now that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He talked about the people of taqwa, He talked about the kuffar, He talked about the hypocrites, and then He gave two examples of these hypocrites. Now that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He gives us basically the summary of people. These are your people. This is where people stand, right? Now that we understand that, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling us, what do you need to do? Now He's giving a direct order. And this is the first order in the Quran. This is the first command in the Quran. Ya ayyuhan nas. And this command is not to the believers only. It is to people. Who are people? Every single person. Ya ayyuhan nas, O people, u'budu rabbakum, worship your Lord, alladhi khalaqakum, walladhina min qablikum la'allakum tattaqun. Worship your Lord. Why rabbakum? Why is He saying worship? Because worship is uluhiyya, right? Is who are we bowing to? Who are we calling to? Right? But He says to call on to your Lord. A Rabb, your Rabb is the one who created and the one who sustains. Why Him? Because He created and sustained. Right? And no one, and that's the thing, in all of these religions, you ask them who created, they're going to tell you Allah. Right? So Allah is telling you, worship Him, the one who created you. So there's no debating this. Even, subhanAllah, even the ones who claim there is no God, right? When they get into a situation and it's like life and death, they're like, oh God. The first one they call on is God. Some of them are like, oh God, if you're up there, listen to this. Yeah, I need you to do this and I need you to do that. Why? Because deep down, everybody knows. Everyone knows that Allah is the one who created you. Right? So Allah now is giving us a command that no one can dispute. No one can dispute it. U'budu rabbakum Who is this Rabb? الذي خلقكم, the one who created you. And he created the people before you. Why do you need to worship him? لَعَلَّكُمْ تَتَّقُونَ, so you can be like those who had taqwa, who we talked about in the beginning. Who Allah talked about in the beginning. So that you can be from those people. Not like the kuffar and not like the hypocrites, but so that you can be from the muttaqeen that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala spoke about in the beginning. Right? So now that we know who we need to worship, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to further describe himself. الَّذِي جَعَلَ لَكُمُ الْأَرْضَ فِرَاشًا. He created this earth for you as a firash. A firash is basically like a rug, right? Something that is spread out for you. Something that is easy for you to move on. Right? Meaning, like, the majority of the earth is easy to go through. It's not these humongous Himalayas mountains, right? Those are small areas on earth. Whereas opposed to the earth is available for us to go through. وَالسَّمَاءَ بِنَاءً, and the heavens is a bina. What is a bina? You would call the building bina.
Canopy translated here.
Canopy?
C-A-N-O-P.
What is a canopy?
They're covering.
A globe or something.
No.
Like it
But that's the bina here means building.
covered. Something built.
No, that's not what it means though. What translation is that?
International.
Sahih International?
It's not
Yeah,
Sahih.
this is, I have Safi in German. It says, in the sky a ceiling and sent down from this.
A sky, a ceiling?
Yeah. It says,
Interesting.
yeah. In the sky a ceiling and sent down from the sky rain and brought. What?
Yeah, it's a bina is a building. Something that is what's that?
Like a strong building.
Yeah, like something that is built up there. And now the sky has been, or a sama has been described in many aspects. So وَالسَّمَاءَ بَنَيْنَاهَا بِأَيْدٍ, right? And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says he built the sky, or sama, the heavens, with might, his mightiness. Excuse me. So I've heard some people explain this to mean like the ozone layers, how the ozone layers are built. But you don't call a layer of air a building. That's not what you call a building. A building is, what we know a building is.
The invisible one?
That's the thing,
Invisible.
is that we don't understand how it's a building,
Yeah.
but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says it is.
It's like the pillar of, what holding the earth to be, whatever.
Yeah, because the way you think of a building, you're thinking pillars, you're thinking foundation,
Yeah.
you're thinking, and then the meat around it, right? The things that's what you're thinking about when you're thinking about a building.
Right.
So there's a reason Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said it like that. And it could be very well that we just don't understand the science of it yet. Maybe. Right? But nonetheless, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He described the heavens or the sky. Allah knows best, because that's the thing also, is that the sky and the heavens sometimes are used interchangeably as a sama. Right? So it could be the sky or it could be the heavens. Right? that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is describing here, but nonetheless He's describing it as a building. وَالسَّمَاءَ بِنَاءً. It could be this type of situation where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when He said كُلٌّ فِي فَلَكٍ يَسْبَحُونَ, that every one of the sun and the moon is in its own orbit swimming, right? Where people before might have heard the word swimming and they're like, I don't know what that means, but Allah said it's swimming. But now we're like, okay, when you move in space, it's swimming. It could be this type of scenario where we don't really completely understand how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala built the sky up, but nonetheless He says He did. Who are we to call Him? Who are we to say that it didn't happen like that? Do you get what I'm saying? But nonetheless, Allah is saying that it is built. This building. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala built the sky. He made the ard firash, and He made the sky as a building. وَأَنزَلَ مِنَ السَّمَاءِ مَاءً. Now, maybe they might be talking about canopy and a covering because of the result of what a building has. Maybe that's why they mention that. So they're just trying to make it easier for the reader, as opposed to getting into the details, which I can understand. And then he brought down from the sky water. وَأَنزَلَ مِنَ السَّمَاءِ مَاءً. Right? So now in this case, Allah. So, and then He brought down from the sky rain or water. Right? So there are scholars who say the sky here means the clouds. Right? Or it could just mean the sky and the clouds are in the sky. But nonetheless, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala brought down water. فَأَخْرَجَ بِهِ, and with the water He brought out of the earth ثَمَرَات, crop. Right? And this crop is rizq. And rizq, we talked about what rizq means. Rizq is anything that you benefit from. Anything that you benefit from. So He made the crop rizqan lakum, a rizq for you. So because Allah gave us all of these things, right? اعبدوا ربكم الذي خلقكم والذين من قبلكم لعلكم تتقون. Okay, no. So because he made the earth flat, right? وَالسَّمَاءَ بِنَاءً, and He built the sky. And then he brought rain from the sky to give us rizq. So because of all of these benefits that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave us, فَلَا تَجْعَلُوا لِلَّهِ أَنْدَادًا وَأَنْتُمْ تَعْلَمُونَ. Don't make anyone like Allah knowingly. Don't make anyone like Allah knowingly. Meaning, like, Allah is the only one who deserves worship. So don't worship anyone with Allah or worship anyone alone, obviously, as well, other than Allah. Does that make sense? So because Allah has given us all of these things, therefore He is the only one who deserves worship. And now, all of these blessings, they are blessings that we tend to forget how important they are. Right? Like, imagine if you had to go to work, right? And you had to climb up a mountain to get there. Imagine if you had to do some basic things where you have to travel a little bit and you got to go up and down these humongous places, and it's the only way for you to get there. Right? A sci-fi thing that I think of is a type of situation where it's like endless pens or something, right? Where like if you got to jump from one thing to another, and if you fall, it's like an endless pit.
Super Mario Brothers.
Something like that, right? Like the earth wasn't created like that, right? I mean, we could think of endless examples of things or ways that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala could have created the earth, but He created it so perfectly for us that it's easy for us to go about, right? But yet we tend to forget about these blessings, right? Another blessing that we tend to forget about is how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us a sky, right? Has given us the heavens. Like how often do we look up there? We tend to forget that, especially in our society where it's always move, 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 move. We tend to forget to look up, right? When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala وَزَيَّنَّا السَّمَاءَ الدُّنْيَا بِمَصَابِيحِ, like Allah made the heavens beautiful for us. Like He made it beautiful so we can look at it. So we should take those benefits and actually look up at the beauty of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Right? So we tend to forget about these blessings. Right? The blessings of rain actually coming down and the benefits that come from that rain. We won't be able to eat without rain. We won't be able to drink without rain. We won't be able to, I mean, what can we do without rain? Nothing. If it stopped raining, then life would stop itself. Right? So the benefits of these things, the amounts of things that we benefit from these three things that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions, is endless. It's everything. All of our benefits are tied to those things. Everything. Does that make sense? So therefore, because all of our benefits are coming from Him, right? Because Allah told us to worship Him because He created us, but now He's also telling us to worship Him because He sustains us. He's giving us all of these benefits. Everything that we can possibly have, everything that we can possibly want, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives us through these resources, right? فَلَا تَجْعَلُوا لِلَّهِ أَنْدَادًا وَأَنْتُمْ تَعْلَمُونَ. So don't worship anyone other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Don't make anyone like Allah. A nid is a like. Is a not a like. A nid is a mathil. Mathil is an equal.
Equivalent.
Yes, is an equal. So don't make anyone equal to Allah. Knowingly. Does that make sense? Any questions about that? هذا والله أعلم. صلى الله وسلم على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك.
جزاك الله خير.
وإياكم.